Since the robe was already being worn, there was definitely no way it could be burnt now, lest Shelian get burnt along with it. Shelian suggested, "I'll just keep the robe on me for now. It's not like it can suck my blood, and Lingwen shouldn't be able to give any more commands either." A draft of blue smoky mist blew by, and where Lingwen had been standing, now had only a blue Dharma doll. Its expression was very serious, and there even seemed to be scrolls in its arms. Shelian picked it up and tucked it away in his robes, and the two left the side chamber, sneaking into the main hall. It wasn't his imagination. The main hall of the Palace of Lingwen appeared to be much gloomier than before. The mountains of scrolls piled high from the ground up looked to be perilous and dangerous, like they would collapse at any given moment and crush the people below to death. The two didn't run into any guards as they sprinted straight for a set of crimson doors in the deep heart of the palace. Before they even got close, Shelian heard a trembling, shocked voice. "How is this possible? How could this be?" It was Gorsha. Could someone have gotten to him before they did? Shelian instantly kicked the door down and growled, "Let him go!" Sure enough, it wasn't only Gorsha alone inside the chamber. After the door was kicked down, everyone turned their heads to look at the new intruders. The shock on Gorsha's face still hadn't faded. "Your Highness?" he asked. Gorsha didn't look up for more than a moment before his head lowered again. "You just wait a sec. How could this be? What kind of luck is this?" Shelian and Wei Chen were both speechless. Within the chamber, Gorsha and 3 others formed a full table, and they were in the middle of a heated game of cards, their passion and obsession blinding them from their surroundings. While previously said to be 3 other people, they weren't actually alive. They were roughly crafted paper dolls, very crudely made. Who knows what kind of bizarre spell was cast for them to move and even play cards. As for Gorsha, his exclamations just now were only his laments after getting his hand of cards. Shelian had originally thought that perhaps Gorsha might suffer torturous interrogation and would look rather ghastly, but he hadn't expected that Gorsha would actually still be playing cards at a time like this. While he didn't know whether to laugh or cry, the whole scene was incredibly dear. How could it not be dear? Back then, when he and Feng Xin resided at the Royal Holy Pavilion, whenever they went to look for Gorsha, 7 out of 10 times he would be playing cards. Cards. Over 800 years had passed, but seeing once again the Gorsha playing cards, it was as if it was only yesterday. Even the crazed passion on Gorsha's face was exactly the same. He stared unblinkingly at the cards in his hands and spoke without looking back. "Your Highness, you've finally come, but let me finish this round first." Shelian knew this was his old bad habit rearing its head, of recognizing no one when gaming was happening. Compared to the him at the Great Martial Hall, they were practically 2 different people. Really, quite the sad sight. Shelian went up to try to drag him away from the table. "Master, what time do you think this is? Stop playing." Gorsha's eyes were red, and he yelled, "No, don't. Let me finish. I'm almost done. Just this round. Let me finish this hand. It's almost done. I might just win this time." "You won't win. You really won't win," Shelian cried. Thankfully, this round really did finish fairly quickly. While Gorsha swore he was going to win, in actuality, he indeed did not win. He waved his hand and withdrew those 3 paper dolls, and then he finally returned to his normal calm demeanor. He sat poised and said solemnly, "Your Highness, I knew you would come. I've been waiting for you." "It didn't look like you were waiting for me at all," Shelian thought. But of course, he didn't say so out loud, since respect for elders must still be maintained. Gorsha continued, "I know you must have many questions." Wei Chen stood on the side, leaning against the door, He looked rather at leisure, but was probably standing guard. Shilian also sat proper and poised before the Gorsha. Yes, the Gorsha said. After a pause, Shilian asked, First I want to confirm, is Junwu, is he really white no face, and also the Crown Prince of Wu Yong? There's no need for doubt. He is, Gorsha replied. I have no relation whatsoever to the Crown Prince of Wu Yong, right? We're two completely different people, Shilian asked. The only relationship you share with the Crown Prince of Wu Yong is that he destroyed your kingdom, Shenle. Shilian said softly. But Gorsha, you once told me that you didn't know what white no face was, and you were certain he was born because of me. Your Highness, at that time, I genuinely did not know what he was, Gorsha replied. And by the time I found out, it was already too late. And to say he was born because of you was not incorrect. Just what exactly does that mean? Shilian asked. And the same question as before. Why did he want to destroy Shenle? Gorsha looked him in the eyes. Because of that one phrase you said. Shilian was taken aback. The one phrase I said? What phrase? Gorsha replied, Body in abyss, heart in paradise. Shilian was speechless for a moment. Then he asked incredulously, That's it? That's it, Gorsha said. Just that one line? Shilian questioned. What's wrong with those words? Gorsha replied darkly. Everything. Everything started with that phrase of yours. Shilian could vaguely tell that what Gorsha was about to say next would be something he'd have a hard time swallowing. He wanted to call for Hua Cheng, but before he could do so, Hua Cheng had already come forward and sat down next to him. You saw those murals at Mount Tonglu, correct? Gorsha asked. Yes, Shilian replied. Were you the one who left those murals behind? Yes, it was me, Gorsha said. Every time Mount Tonglu opened its gates, I would sneak in. On one hand, it was to prevent a new ghost king from being born, and on the other, it was to use all manner of ways to leave some sort of clue to tell others about the kingdom of Wu Yong and about the crown prince of Wu Yong. Shilian wondered solemnly. Why not just tell people directly? Why must you use such a roundabout method? Your Highness, why do you think there's now practically no one in the world who knows about the kingdom of Wu Yong? Before Shilian answered, Hua Cheng had spoken up. Everyone who knew has been cleaned away, right? That's right, Gorsha replied. If the clues left behind were too obvious, or if word spread directly, then I would be in danger of exposure. Anyone who had seen might vanish from this world. It wouldn't matter how many people. Even if it was a city fortress, he could turn it into flat ground within 3 days. You should know, I'm not joking. Of course, Shilian knew. And the ironic thing was, he was once thankful that Junwu had ascended and become a god, instead of fallen into becoming a ghost. Otherwise, the world would fall into chaos. Gorsha continued. This is why I can't let him notice that there are still people in this world who know about those events. But still, I can't accept the fact that I'm the only one who knows. I thought those who are attentive enough and brave enough would naturally discover the truth. Since I don't have the power to fight him straight on, I'll just go more with the flow. Throughout the years, I've been hiding and running and have concealed myself well. Except for that time 800 years ago when I almost couldn't get away, he has never been able to capture me. He was able to this time because he discovered the murals I left behind in that divine temple within the red forest of Tonglu. Plus later on, you correctly guessed his identity. And so it occurred to him that I might still be alive, and also left behind many things he didn't want people to know about. Shilian remembered when they were passing through the last divine temple within the red forest of Tonglu. The last couple of murals, the most important ones, were already destroyed by someone. At that time, both he and Wei Chen suspected that someone was hidden inside the temple, but they weren't able to find the person. Now that he thought back on it, there was actually a very real possibility that White No Face really was hidden in some corner within that divine temple. Tian asked, "But Gorsha, why do you have to keep hiding and running?" Gorsha replied, "Of course, it's because of betrayal," Wei Chen said. The word was a little sharp, and Gorsha gave him a look. However, Wei Chen's expression did not change. "You've betrayed him, right?" "Pretty much," Gorsha said. "That's about it." He turned to Tian. "How do I say this, Your Highness? Everything told by the murals is all true. The esteemed Highness, the Crown Prince of Wu Yong, was like the one and only son of the kingdom of Wu Yong. Back in the day, when you were the Crown Prince of Shenle, however glorious you were, he was many times more. Me and my 3 peers, the 4 of us, were once his vassals. After the Crown Prince ascended, he appointed us all up to the heavens, and there we witnessed the many forms and colors of various celestial beings. Without any exaggeration, even within the sea of gods in the heavenly realm, he was also like the sun, shining so brightly that others next to them would lose their colors." As Gorsha spoke, the smallest of smiles appeared unconsciously, just a flash. Tian felt, when he was addressing the other as His Highness, he wasn't talking about Junwu or White No Face, but rather the young Crown Prince of 2,000 years ago. "I think you've also told me something similar in the past," Tian said. "Have I? When people get old, their memory is bad." "You have, but you told me he didn't ascend. You told me that he died." "That's probably because I'd rather he hadn't ascended," Gorsha said. "Was it because the volcano of Mount Tonglu erupted?" Gorsha didn't answer his question, and only said, "His Highness's spiritual powers were too strong. In a dream, he foresaw the future of Wu Yong as a sea of fire, and so he started thinking of ways to save his people. If the me of now was there, I would never have let him do so. But at the time, none of us thought things would turn out the way that they did. We only thought that there were people who were going to die, so what's wrong with saving them? But things weren't so simple. It was impossible to stop the volcano from erupting, and if we wanted no one to be hurt, then the only option was to migrate. However, the affected areas were too great. It wasn't just a matter of 1 or 2 city fortresses. To the nobles and the common people, the best way was to invade other kingdoms and take over their land. Otherwise, the other kingdoms wouldn't so easily allow such a great number of people from Wu Yong to move in. However, to His Highness, that wasn't an option at all. Blood would be shed in a war, and once blood flows, eyes would grow red, people would turn violent, and they would become less than human. Still, the kingdom of Wu Yong dispatched troops. Wherever the soldiers went, not a single soul was left alive. Since the objective was to clear land for future people of Wu Yong to move in, the generals had given the order to slaughter the citizens of the other kingdoms. The more the better. Blood flowed like rivers, corpses piled high like mountains. Once His Highness found out, he was very angry. As you all have seen, he descended upon the battlefield and punished those soldiers of Wu Yong. When Tian realized this was about the young Junwu, and also the young White No Face, he felt rather intrigued. Gorsha continued. Yet, he wasn't the only one who was angry. This whole affair also angered the nobles of Wu Yong, and also some of the people. Many went to the divine temple to question His Highness. We only wanted to survive. We needed more land, and we only invaded others because we had no choice. So how could we be wrong? The effect of this affair greatly exceeded all of our expectations, and it was becoming more and more serious, with some already calling for the desecration of his statues, the burning of his temples. But His Highness withstood all of it. He said, if Wu Yong was the one being invaded, he would die defending the kingdom, not allowing the enemy to step a single foot across the border. However, if it was they themselves, they must never invade others. He earnestly requested for everyone to abandon war and wait until he had built something, his heaven-crossing bridge. Gorsha then said slowly, there wasn't any more land in the mortal realm, so let's bring the people up to the heavens to shelter them for a while. While this idea was practically impossible, all 4 of us believed in His Highness absolutely, convinced that he could do it. Or rather, we would do our utmost to support him in whatever he endeavored. Of course, the other heavenly officials didn't think the same. The entire heavenly realm was against it, but His Highness still withstood it. He took on 3 things at once: the ignorance and grumbling complaints of the nobles and people of Wu Yong, the incessant outrage of all the gods in heaven, and that giant heaven-crossing bridge. However, Wu Yong snorted. Against it, they probably weren't just opposing it. Gorsha nodded slowly. If it was only mere opposition, it wouldn't have mattered. But Tian could vaguely guess what had happened, but he still asked. But? Gorsha said, that bridge required an enormous amount of time and terrifying spiritual power to fully build, and His Highness couldn't be distracted at all. He had practically stopped going anywhere else, stopped doing anything else, and stopped listening to the prayers of believers. He could only focus on doing this one thing. However, a god that can only do one thing will never be able to keep followers. The first day he took on that bridge, the people were grateful to him and remembered him. The second day, the third day, the fourth day were also the same. A month, 2 months, they still were grateful and remembered him. But as time dragged on, it wouldn't do. The volcano hadn't erupted yet, but His Highness wasn't doing anything else, and had been silently storing his powers. The people couldn't help but feel he wasn't as powerful as he once was, and that he wasn't as dedicated anymore. At a time like this, inevitably, a new god would be worshipped. The kingdom of Wu Yong was greatly populated, its wealth abundant, and the power of belief of the citizens was also quite strong. This was obvious, seeing how His Highness prospered back then. There were many heavenly officials who had long been salivating over this domain and the believers within it. So, Tian understood. He said, so the heavenly officials took advantage of this opportunity. They used the resentment and dissatisfaction that the people of Wu Yong bore from the descent of the crown prince to withdraw the troops. They tempted them and divided his believers and the source of his spiritual powers, right?